We have to make sure that TSA just does a much, much better job. Profiling, whatever else we want to call it, the fact is 95% failure rate is wrong. And that not just wrong, it's totally unacceptable.
The TSA just can't seem to catch a break. This week saw the sacking of its administrator over a report investigators had a nearly 100% success rate in sneaking explosives or mock weapons through its own TSA checkpoints. It comes as the Senate still hasn't approved the president's nominee to lead the agency and plans to put more TSA administrators on the hot seat at a hearing this Tuesday. Chad Wolf is the former assistant administrator of the TSA, vice president of Wexler and Walker. At some level, when you hear that the red team has a nearly 100% success rate, at some level it would almost be funny if we weren't dealing with something that is so serious.
Yeah, it's surprisingly shocking on the failure rate that they were able to do. And I think it points to a larger problem. I mean, red team testing has been around TSA for decades. FAA prior to TSA, and some level of success rate for those red teams is acceptable. That's what you want. You want them testing the system and stressing the system. But a 96% failure rate, almost 100%, points to a larger problem there at the checkpoint. And what we've seen from the response from DHS, I think it points to more of a systemic problem at the checkpoint.
Well, and also there's an issue of confidence in terms of the American public. You got 1 million people a day getting on airplanes, and they realize, well, the people at the checkpoints may be having grandma take her shoes off, but they probably are not going to catch a bad guy coming through. 97% of the times, they missed what the bad guys had.
Yeah, and it really comes to where does DHS go? Where does TSA go from
Where should
here?
they?
And it really is. It's a crisis of confidence at that checkpoint. And when DHS says, hey, we understand the results, we're taking care of it, I don't think that cuts it any longer. So I think you need a third-party organization looking at checkpoint operations. What's happening there as far as screener training, the resources, the technology. I don't think TSA has credibility with the traveling public or with Capitol Hill.
They may not have credibility with the terrorists either, who probably aren't too scared when they see these kinds of numbers. This isn't the first TSA scandal. I had our brain room pull up some numbers on the TSA, and we actually don't have time to list all of the problems that the TSA has had, but we did pull up a couple of them. In 2015, this year, a couple of screeners were fired because they set up a way to grope male passengers. 2012, 4 screeners were charged with trafficking and bribery because they took bribes to allow drugs to go through the scanners inside luggage. 2007, both LAX and Chicago O'Hare Airport, very high success rates by what we've called these red teams who sort of try to sneak stuff through. Is there anything that can be done to secure America's airports, or is it an issue that you've got 1 million people a day, there's really no way in terms of both cost effectiveness and customer service to screen them?
Yeah, it's a difficult job without a doubt. And what we've said all along, TSA will say at the checkpoint, is it's a filter and it's not a guarantee. They have multiple layers of security at the airport, and the checkpoint is one of those. However, my opinion is that checkpoint in many instances is the last line of defense.
Well, especially it's the last line of defense now that we're learning that there's self-radicalized people who haven't had training overseas. These folks are self-radicalized by ISIS. They're here in the United States. They have U.S. passports. Yeah. They may not be on any kind of watch list. They may just be able to buy a ticket like you or me.
Yeah, and that's really where the checkpoint operations come into focus. And when you have this type of failure across the system, it points to a larger problem at TSA. TSA's had 13 years to get this right. Covert testing has been around for 13 years or longer. And the question is, it's essentially a 100% failure rate. What has happened at that checkpoint? Is it complacency? The further you get from 9/11, perhaps screeners, perhaps the frontline supervisors and headquarters staff are not focused on the security mission. And that pendulum between customer service and security swings back and forth.
And also at some level of the folks that you have doing it. You have folks who are making $8, $9, $10 an hour there at the checkpoint. You probably are not hiring what you could hire if you're paying something $30 or $40 an hour.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you don't have the FBI at that checkpoint. You have screeners that have 40 hours of classroom training.
40 hours, that's all it takes.
60 hours of on-the-job training. They have recurrent training. They do have training, but you're right. You got to look at the level of individuals that you have there, and pay and budget certainly becomes an issue.
Chad Wolf, we appreciate you being here. I wish I felt better after these 4 minutes of talking to you. I'm not sure I do, but thank you. We appreciate it. And we want to hear from you. Does TSA screening make you feel safer when flying? Why? Why not? Already got one very interesting response who said that the TSA was living in a cardboard box and praying it wouldn't rain. But we want to hear from you as well. Tweet us at Leland Vittert, at Shannon Bream, or at ANHQDC. We'll read some of your responses later on in the show.